Come to the markets with us now. Tom Lee, the head of research at Fundstrat, Global Advisors, Chief Investment Officer at Fundstrat Capital, and Annie's are all CNBC contributors. The first post-election appearance that we've had, you knew Trump was going to win. Well, not many people did, but you said it, so I'll give you credit. You saw it in the Trump trade, you saw it in Bitcoin, and you saw it in sectors of the market that would benefit from that's right, presumably but who knows? I believe there is still a lot of upside because this rally after the election was tremendous, and it continued yesterday. I believe that a lot of money was pulled out of the market due to the uncertainty surrounding the election, and we now know that because of policy changes in animal spirits, this is really going to benefit things like Bitcoin and small caps, as well as regional banks and financials. Small caps trade at 10 times median forward earnings, which is a lot of money. So what do you think that should be 12 times? What potential do you see? Since 1987, small cap stocks have traded on a medium PE basis at a premium to the S&P, which is currently at 17 times. I believe that small cap stocks might beat the S&P by more than 100% in the next years. And what do you think about some of the macro issues that I think create a different level of uncertainty? We keep talking about the bond market, and what that might be saying what you think is happening with gold. Are the bond vigilantes going to be this governor on whatever you think is going to happen in Washington? As James Carville famously said, the bond market is everyone's scared of the bond market, so that is something we need to watch. But we've had plenty of periods where stocks have risen with bonds rising, and I kind of agreed with Powell's assessment that it's not because yields have gone up, not because of inflation, but because there's sort of a change in growth expectations. I thought that a sweep was for either party was the death knell for the markets and frightening to all involved. And now we're getting a sweep. Why isn't it more frightening? Maybe the sweep the other way would have been a little more frightening to some. I think part of the reason investors are getting somewhat optimistic is that President Trump is entering office again, but this time with a lot more knowledge of how to build a cabinet and a team, and so in some ways this would end up being more market friendly. And I think that's why investors are becoming optimistic. I kind of agreed with the idea that there are animal spirits growing. He'll never be deficit friendly. He will be deficit friendly. He won't be, if we cut taxes on tips, so the security over time, remove the SALT cap, extend the tax cuts. If you do all those things that seems like it's going to be very difficult to fix the deficit with just changes in taxes and spending. But it's probably why Bitcoin is kind of interesting here, because of it's potentially a treasury reserve asset. And as if Bitcoin rises in price, it actually helps offset the liabilities, which is the deficit. So you were at 150, I think, on Bitcoin, weren't you? But not necessarily by the end of this year. Or I think six figures is still possible for before the end of the year, But and then more next year and the year after, I think, because now post-halving, and now Bitcoin's becoming a lot more relevant. And I think maybe the regulatory overhang is diminishing, that there's a lot of upside from here. And end of next year, between now and year end 5 to 10% is probably the base case, just because that's the type of rally post-election. And we have a Deutsche Fed, and the normal seasonals is that the right move right now for the fade. I think inflation fighting a war is largely over, and the real rate is still too high. So I agree with Fed's view that we need to move towards neutral, which is towards 3%. So I think it is supportive of markets, and a business investment has been constrained. So I think these things are positive. So what about 2000? What's next year? Is that 25? They move so fast, they're like months now, the years. So what about 2025? So 5 to 10% more would put us well above, more than 6,000 before year end. I think it leads for the foreseeable future. No recession, and people want you to answer when I ask you a question. So what are you saying? 60 100 on the S&P? I think past like 6,700 sometime next. 6,700, sometime next year. Because that's another 20%, isn't it? It's maybe 10-15, because margin debt hasn't really risen in the last 4 months, and the stock market's up, so we know investors haven't been adding risk. And now we have earnings visibility, and we have a continued dovish Fed, and then the selections behind us, so multiple tailwinds exist. Favo, you're pretty bullish. I think I'm pretty positive on the US. And fundamentals, yes, okay, good. This report, from the information that they're asking suppliers to change the server racks for Blackwell, due to overheating, how much does it concern you? It does not concern me very much at all. Look, Nvidia went through this about 5 months ago. The thing with Nvidia is very quick to make changes, and this particular overheating issue with the Blackwell, that's already been played out and the design was changed. So if we're talking about potentially a new overheating issue, we may be talking about Grace Blackwell. But I can tell you definitively that Jensen's not the kind of CEO that likes to make the same mistake twice. So I don't see this problem happening, or if it is, it's probably not a meaningful issue, because Jensen was able to come back, or Nvidia was able to come back from the previous issue in less than 2 months. But does it change the numbers if there has to be a delay? I mean, Jensen did tell CNBC, I don't know, a month or so ago, that the demand for Blackwell was, quote, insane. So I don't think that's the problem, but the timing, I don't think the timing changes at all. I think Blackwell is ready to go. I think Blackwell is fixed. And we maintain our tagline, you have to own Nvidia into the Blackwell ramp. I mean, that's going to be the rosiest period of owning Blackwell is when Blackwell is ramping. So I maintain that we've had this overheating issue, particularly with Blackwell, and I think it's been addressed. I think we're expecting like tiny bit of volume to come through in the October quarter, and then a substantial volume to come through in the January quarter. And that's the way we see it with Nvidia. We are going to get earnings fairly soon. So what are you looking for? And perhaps even more importantly, when we listen to the commentary around the earnings, what are going to be some of the key milestones that you're going to watch? Yes. So historically, if you go back last 1 and 2 years, Nvidia has been on this cadence of about $2 billion beat and $2 billion rise, so that literally the quarters are rising about $4 billion apiece. So for the October quarter, we're